So one of the neat details of Jason Botchford's story on Lyndon Vei's, I guess, family trouble, alleged murder conspiracy involving his parents, is that he received a phone call from Canucks president Trevor Linden while vacationing in Burma. So Trevor's out enjoying the sights, and then he makes time to call Jason so Jason can get the Canucks side of the story. Now that sends a big message to me that the Canucks are a bit of a stand-up organization. They're willing
that they're going to Burma?
Not that they're going to Burma, but that the team president on vacation will take the time and make a phone call when in reality he doesn't really have to do much for an RFA. So what kind of message are the Canucks sending out when it comes to the management of the team, the culture of the team? What do you think, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, first of all, bringing in Trevor Linden after getting rid of Mike Gillis was probably the smartest thing the Aquilinis could have done. You're talking about the greatest icon of the franchise in 46 years, a decent guy who's been here since he was a teenager, leaves hockey, goes into the business world, is successful, people respect him, and when the club's in trouble, they reach out to him and bring him back for his first hockey management job. So this doesn't surprise me, and it actually doesn't surprise me that Trevor, being on holiday halfway around the world, would do this. It's a serious matter, and when he spoke of Lyndon Vei, he did so in the most respectful and thoughtful manner. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Absolutely, Paul. What do you think?
Well, I don't want to be the cynic, but I will be. Jonathan knows very well what happened with this story. The Canucks were freaking out a little bit. Jason had put out feelers on social media and had teased on our Patcast, the podcast he does with Jeff Patterson, that he had a big story coming, and the Canucks social media or the Canucks media relations team were fumbling all over it, going, what's going on, and they were a little nervous about it. So I think Trevor was on red alert that they wanted to have their say. They didn't know what was coming. Now, I give them credit for Trevor being available and taking a little bit of time, but let's face it, you're working in professional sports. Hasn't been doing a ton since early April, so you know what? It's a heavy job. It's a big responsibility. So to offer comment for 5 minutes, I'm not ready to add to Trevor's sainthood yet. I just think that's part of the job, and we don't really know that he was on vacation in Burma. He could have been scouting. It could be a location
scouting in Burma.
Yeah, the NHL has been looking to expand its horizons. We're not sure that Seattle doesn't seem to want an arena. Maybe there's something going on in Burma. Who knows?
Okay, so Linden did have a lot of supportive words for Lyndon Vei. Now, is that enough to attract free agents? Because that's really Trevor's job, right? Selling the team, selling the culture. Are other players in the league going to look around and say, okay, Vancouver is a place where I want to play because it's a players' organization?
This is a great topic, in that Jonathan brought up Mike Gillis before, and as much as people here disliked Mike Gillis, that was one of Mike Gillis' strengths. He was a very player-centered front office. He was an agent. He did the sleep doctor. He did nutrition. He looked to protect the players. He took the heat for the players. He gave them no trades. He worked on all this stuff. Then Gillis leaves, and the current regime, St. Trevor, is doing everything they can to undermine these no trades. Yeah, I think that this was a place that players wanted to play before, and now I'm not so sure. I always think the media and the fan pressure here will be a little bit different, but in terms of, they're going to stand up and support their players, but I think when you look at who's fighting for the players and the perks they give them, I think the Gillis regime was top of the line there.
Okay, but also at that time, the team was near the top of the NHL, right? So in the years since, the team has slipped.
They weren't when he took over, though.
Okay, but now they're 28th in the NHL. So, standing up for your team, doing the things that Trevor and Jim Benning do, it's all very nice. But if you're Milan Lucic, and there's still talk about Milan Lucic, maybe coming back to Vancouver. Milan Lucic isn't coming back to Vancouver. Milan Lucic would like to win another Stanley Cup. Milan Lucic has a certain number of years here, and Vancouver is great, but aside from the pressure of coming home and playing in your hometown, the same place where you get in trouble if you're you're playing for the visiting team and you're on Granville Street, mixing it up with people who want to take a shot at you. Aside from that, would Milan Lucic want to come here to the 28th best team in the NHL? Because what are the prospects for success here? That, to me, is the ultimate, challenge in attracting key free agents. First of all, you're not going to win through free agency necessarily. It may provide stopgaps. But boy, I would think that if you're a free agent, if you're a Louis Eriksson, like it's nice to have your name attached to the Sedins, but you're also saying, geez, you know what, there are 27 teams in the NHL right now who happen to be better than the Vancouver Canucks. Maybe I'll pick one of them.
Okay, one last question, guys. And when you look in your crystal ball, where do you see Linden Vey ending up next year?
Well, I do think this family situation that Jason covered in his story this week is very interesting. We don't really know how much impact that had on him. And I'd heard from a number of people who are like, wow, what was it like when Jason actually approached him with this story, thinking like, I'm not sure why he spoke to Jason. I think this was a huge relief to him. No matter how he says it didn't impact him or it's not an excuse, of course it did. So I think the Canucks are probably intrigued knowing that this is out there now, it's public, it's going to court. Maybe with that out of the way, he might flourish a little bit. But, you know, I don't think we can tell any signs of really what's going to happen until we see the other dominoes fall. I think he's a guy who you still believe in the potential and say if he didn't have that hanging over his head, what would that mean? But I also think that there were much bigger fish to fry for the Canucks.
Jonathan?
I think this is an interesting situation because impending free agency, as you point out, so now the story's out about his family, and when you saw the chatter on social media, there were a lot of people who said, I feel badly about the way I've spoken of Linden Vey as a hockey player, knowing what he went through. But the question is he part of the future plans? Was he part of the future plans a week ago? And now does anything change because there's a story out there that makes him, honestly, for good reason, a sympathetic character? So does that change the club? Does the club say, well, we'd better give him the money we need to offer an RFA? And the club does hold the cards by and large there. But do they, or do they just part ways? And if they part ways, do they look bad?
Has impacted them, though. I don't think they look bad, but again, I think if they believe that the potential they saw in him 2 years ago will be fulfilled, or at least there's more progress or a better chance of it with that weight off his shoulders, then yeah, they might look at it. And let's not forget, this is an organization now, the front office, that is just built on scouting. So if they saw potential there, maybe they still see it. But it goes back to the question of who else is there? How much money do they want to spend? Ultimately, it all comes down to money. Okay, to listen to Botchford's take on his story, you can download the Patcast. That's available at theprovince.com, and you can subscribe to Province Sports Radio in iTunes.